right, I'm going to go ahead and get started. As I mentioned, this week, Webinar Wednesday, we are going to be talking about Creo Distributed Batch. So before I start talking about that, just a little agenda. I'm going to start with a brief introduction to myself and to Boundary Systems. I'm then just going to briefly talk about distributed batch. I'm not going to spend too much time on that. I'm going to mostly just open up the program and demonstrate how it's used. And lastly, at the end, we'll do a Q&A. If anybody has any questions during this presentation, anything that comes up, feel free to submit that into the questions fields in GoToWebinar, and I will get to them at the end or whenever I can. All right, so first, just a brief introduction about me. I've been at Boundary for about 3 years. I come from an engineering background, so other CAD programs mostly, and now I'm working primarily with Creo and the other different kinds of programs in the Creo bundle. Boundary Systems, most of you probably already know about us, but once again, just very brief introduction. We are mostly a PTC partner, but we do partner with a couple other software companies as well, and we offer all kinds of different Creo and PTC product support. So that's product life cycle management support, Windchill support, instruction, so teaching classes, design and consulting, etc. Here's just some industry awards. Big one to note here would just be authorized and certified training partner. And here we just have some of the other software that we work with besides PTC products. These are mostly just things that we think fill a niche that PTC products doesn't quite cover. For example, we have Keyshot, Moldex 3D in here, just to name a couple that we also offer various services for. All right, so moving on to distributed batch. Essentially what this is it is an application, so it's a separate standalone desktop icon essentially that you'll click to open outside of Creo. And what it lets you do is automate a lot of the different actions you do in Creo. And the benefit of that would be, number one, you can do this on multiple files at once. So for example, let's say you want to export your entire current workspace in Windchill, and you want to export this as these as PDFs. Rather than opening each file separately in Creo, going through the various steps to export to PDF, we can just do this all separately in this Creo Distributed Batch program. Essentially, we can define exactly what we would like to do. So in this case, export to PDF. We'll then set just some various other options, including which files we actually want to do this to. And then we'll be able to run our batch essentially. And with that, we can essentially, as I said, automate the entire process. The second benefit here is, besides being able to do this on multiple different Creo files at once, we can actually spread the workload between multiple computers. So what I mean by this is I could actually use my own laptop plus one of my coworkers' laptops on the same network. And if I'm doing something on 100 different files, we can essentially split the work 50 files to 50 files between the two computers. And as a result, this will all get done twice as fast. So those are the main two benefits, I would say, to distributed batch. Number one, being able to automate your processes across a bunch of files at once. And number two, being able to enlist other computers in your network to help you with that and make it go faster. So some of the things that we can actually automate, so some of the different actions we can take are listed here on the left. I mentioned just export a Creo drawing to PDF would be a pretty basic or common use of this. An additional one that I've gotten a whole lot of use out of is running map keys. That gives you a lot of power to do lots of different things. For example, I once was working with a company who had hundreds of drawings, and they were trying to use these drawings to 3D print the part that was being drawn. And as a result, they actually had to change their drawing views. They were using something like a top view and a right view, and what we needed, just for example, was a top view and a left view. So there wasn't really a good way to fix this, at least manually. We would have to go through every drawing and manually change that top view to or rather that right view to a left view. And doing this hundreds of times is not really feasible. So what we were able to do is, using distributed batch, we actually made a map key in Creo that would automatically select the view you wanted to change, and then just go ahead and change that view. So by creating this map key, we were able to essentially run this this relatively complex operation automatically across hundreds of different drawing files. So hopefully that gives you a little bit of background on how this is used, some potential use cases for it. So with all of that being shown, I'm going to just jump into the software itself. All right, so first we just have Creo parametric here. This is just a basic part file that I grabbed off of my personal Windchill server. And if I wanted to perform any of these operations using distributed batch, I would then be sure to open my Creo Distributed Batch software. I mentioned that this is going to be a separate application here. So all of this is going to be done outside of Creo, and we don't even necessarily have to have Creo parametric on this computer. All right, so once we open Creo Distributed Batch, this is what we're going to see by default. It's going to look pretty empty. And we have the basic options here: file open, file save, etc. If I click create new batch file, we'll see nothing happens, just because this is a new batch file. That's what that looks like. So the first thing we're going to want to do once we open Distributed Batch, or DBatch for short, is connect to Windchill if we were required to do so, if we're going to be using Windchill. Windchill is not required to use distributed batch. We can use local files if we would like. But if we are going to be connecting to Windchill, we're going to go ahead and do that. So that's going to be in Tools, Server Management. And if you all have any experience using Windchill for Creo, this will look very familiar. This essentially works just like connecting to Windchill in Creo parametric. And we can see that my server boundary Windchill is actually already loaded in here. And that's because I have Creo on this computer. So if I do this in Creo, if I connect to Windchill, it's actually going to automatically do the same in DBatch. It's using just the exact same server management functionality here. So all of that's already set for me. We can see I have various workspace that were created just for DBatch, but any workspace in Windchill that you have access to can be used. All right, so now in distributed batch, I'm just going to click open real quick, and we'll see that this says select DXC file. The reason I point this out is we're going to be using different types of files here. So we're going to be using TTDs and DXCs. So just making the distinction here, A DXC file is a distributed batch file. So that means any additional batch functions that I add to this, for example, export to PDF, they're going to appear on the left here in this kind of table of contents looking thing. And then I'll then be able to save that as a batch file. So that's going to differentiate from TTD files, which I'm going to show next. So if I want to add an action to this, so just to get started, something like export to PDF, I'm going to go to this action drop down here and click New Task Group. And here we will see a different file type, as I mentioned, TTD files. And we'll notice we have a big list of kind of preloaded actions we can take, TTD files, or we can select one from file. So I'm just going to kind of scroll through here and let you see all of the different actions that we can take. But you'll notice that for various CAD programs, these all actually have separate TTD files. So for AutoCAD, we can do 2D exports. We have the same options for something like CATIA, 2D, 3D export, etc. We can see we can automatically create a shrink wrap in Creo. Scrolling down to miscellaneous, we see that we can run ModelCHECK or run a map key defined in a config.pro, which, as I mentioned, I personally get a lot of use out of. So I mentioned that these are essentially all the different preloaded actions that are kind of hard-coded and saved as files already just by default. However, if you have any kind of coding experience, these TTD files are able to be created and customized by the user. So what this means, essentially each of these TTD files, so each of these actions, it can be opened in Notepad, and it's going to look like a big block of code. And with proper experience with these TTD files, we can edit them, do things a little bit differently if we would like. A good example could be combining multiple TTD files. For example, I could create my own custom TTD that would run a map key and then export to PDF if I would like. And that's a rather simple application. And essentially, I would just be able to open these two TTD files and copy and paste the second one below the first one. In this specific scenario, it would be quite easy. All right, so when I choose an action, I'm just going to go ahead and click it and click OK. So I'm going to scroll down again to run a map key defined in config.pro and click OK. And now we can see that in my table of contents kind of looks like a model tree. I now have this task group right here. So this is essentially a TTD file that is associated now and linked to my distributed batch file, which once again is different. So if I did a file save right now, file save as, I can save this as a DXC and then come back and load this up. And what I would see is just what I have here, essentially an empty batch file with just one TTD attached to it. All right, so hopefully that kind of explains the different files you'll be working with and what the difference between them is. So now actually going through with this action, running a map key defined in a config.pro. You'll see that we have three different, actually four different menus we can click through. The first one here is just going to give me a summary, and it'll allow me to set some various options here. So first we have TTD file. I mentioned that we are going to have lots of TTDs by default, and here's the file path for these. It's just going to be in your common files of wherever your Creo is saved. And we're going to have these TTDs. At least some already created. Next, we can see that we have the option for DSM, or Distributed Services Manager. This is where we are going to choose whether we want to run this just on my own computer, or if we're going to want to essentially share the load with other computers in our network. This is going to be done with Creo Distributed Services Manager, which is essentially another standalone software that is associated with Creo. So I'm not going to be covering that entire other program in this webinar, but I'm just going to point out that in Creo Distributed Batch, this is where you're going to actually set that if you would like to use other computers. All right, so the next area is objects. This is where we're going to actually select the files that this is going to be run on. So we'll see that we have just a file open here. If I select my working directory, or if I select network down here, after a brief load, it looks like, we'll be able to select files from either my computer or from a Windchill directory. Sorry about the delay here. Looks like the network button is not responding for me. So I'm just going to give this a minute or so, see if this this responds. If not, I'll just move on. I think I will go ahead and move on. This selection of files is pretty simple. As I said, main thing to keep in mind is just that you can use local files, or you can use files from Windchill. Oh, looks like it closed out my entire batch, so got to reopen that. Again, thank you for your patience. All right, so back in here, just a really quick review. First thing, server management. I'm already connected to Windchill. So I just have to double click that, set my workspace, and I'm all good. Next step would be adding in our TTD files. So new task group. I'm just going to use one of these that is in Creo by default, already saved in my common files, and here we are, we're back. So once again, I have my TTD file here. I'm going to just select standalone to only run this on my own computer. Now for objects, I'm going to go ahead and file open, just select something local from my own hard drive to run this on. In this case, since we're running a map key, the input is essentially going to be a part assembly or drawing. And we can see that when I double click here, we have the object, we have a status, so in this case unsubmitted because this batch has not run yet. We can see version 1.2, and we can see the file path of where this came from. So in this case, it's from my workspace. Next, we have configuration files. For a map key specifically, this is going to be created in Creo and saved in a configuration file. If you open a configuration file that has a map key, it will once again basically have code laid out for you of each of these map key actions actually taking place. So as a result, to run a map key, you do need to actually attach that map key to this distributed batch file in the form of a config.pro. So in order to do that, I'm just going to create a map key really quick here. So to do that, I will open up my map keys in Creo. I'm going to create a new map key. Make the keyboard shortcut just the letter A. I'm going to give it a name, and now I'm going to press record. And when I press that, Creo is going to pick up on everything that I do, any clicks I make, anything like that. So what I'm going to do here, I'm just going to make this map key very simple. It's just going to flip this to the bottom view, and that's it. Now it's telling me that assemble is already configured to the A key, but that's okay. I'll just reassign that command. All right. So now I can go ahead and run this map key if I would like. I'll get my view all different, all messed up. And when I run this, we'll see that it pulls up this view manager. It rotates the bottom. And then inadvertently, it's actually dragging this view manager here, leaving it open as well. So if I want this to be closed, I would need to actually record that in my map key that I need to, press this X button. All right, so going back to map keys really quick here, we'll see that we have the option to save. So if I click save here, just this map key that I have selected, we'll see that the default, it's going to save this as a config file, a config.pro. So let's see. Hopefully my network button is not broken again here for me. But essentially, I'm just going to go ahead and save this config.pro file. And over here in Creo Distributed Batch, I'll then essentially just browse to wherever I save that and select it. If it lets me do that. All right, let's avoid this problem. Just put it right on the desktop. Then I'm going to go ahead and then just select this, just right from my desktop, this config.pro. There we go. And the last is going to be output. So we can choose where we actually want these completed files. So this will be after the map keys run, where we want them to output. Currently, I'm just going to keep this as the same location. However, with certain actions, you're definitely going to want to output this somewhere else. For example, exporting PDF files, you may want to output this into some kind of new directory. All right, so the last step here is to actually run this. So to do that, I'm just going to right click here in the table of contents, click start. We'll see that the color changes to kind of this open green. And it's going to think for a second. It's going to work on this. I can see that just by this progress bar. Or if I go to objects, we can see that the color changed here as well, from orange to this green of in progress. And after this is done, it's going to change to either blue to show me that it worked, or red to show me that it failed. One thing to point out, this is a pretty simple action here, just running a quick map key. And we'll see that it is taking about a minute. I found that there's kind of a constant amount of time, about a minute or two, that's going to be required anytime you run this. But essentially that's going to be constant no matter how many files you're working with. So I point that out because in this particular instance, I'm just doing this, on a single Creo part. And this is maybe not going to be the most time efficient if I sit here, waiting for a minute for it to work. However, if I'm doing this, 100 files at a time, this delay here is going to be about the same. There's going to be, about a minute of setup, and then it's kind of just going to rapid fire go through each of these files very quickly. So I guess take-home message is don't be discouraged by this taking a minute or so. It doesn't take that much longer, no matter how many files you actually do. All right, I'm going to go ahead and move on to Q&A, just because this will take a minute, and I've showed all the the functionality. So I don't want to make you all just sit here and wait for it to either fail or complete. So I'm going to go ahead and open up to questions. Let's see. So first question I have, can you run Creo Distributed Batch and Creo at the same time with one Creo license? So the answer to this is, I believe it is a separate license. So the answer to that is no. You do need a, at least I'm about 95% sure that it still works this way, but you do need a Creo Distributed Batch license to do this. So if you have a Creo Distributed Batch license and no Creo Parametric license, that is, that would be okay, but you do need this Distributed Batch license in order to do this. Next question, we didn't install Distributed Batch option when installing Creo. So will we need to uninstall and reinstall? Or can we add using reconfigure.exe? This question, it's asking if you do the initial Creo install and you do a search on your computer and Distributed Batch is not installed. How do we get this to work? The answer kind of is related to this licensing question. So Distributed Batch is not going to download automatically if you do not have a Distributed Batch license. So as a result, in order to fix this, you'll basically want to make sure that you do have this Distributed Batch license. And at that point, you can just run a reconfigure.exe, and you don't need to uninstall and reinstall, and you'll be able to download Distributed Batch that way. Next question, could this be used to move files from one context in Windchill to another? The answer is yes. That would be a clever and good use of this software. Next question, under objects, what is the recursively add task to the task group list? And what is the function? Let's see. So let's see if I can find what you're discussing. Is it, I think what you're talking about is here in objects, this personally find and add task objects. So what this does, at least I'm pretty sure what this will do is essentially select a directory and automatically add new things to that directory to this list as they get created. I'm actually not 100% sure, to be honest. I've never used that option personally. So this may be something that I have to just look into the functionality of this, what we can do, and reply to you via email, because I don't have a lot of experience with that. But as I said, I'm pretty sure the function of this is to essentially set a directory that that essentially it's automatically going to grab the files from that directory as I created. But I will go ahead, confirm the functionality of that, practice playing around with it, make sure that is how it works. And if that is not, the functionality, or if there's anything else that can do, I will update you via email about that. And last one, I have a comment. It helps to have Task Manager open to see the non-graphical xtop.exe to show up in the details list. See if I can find that. Let's see. I may be looking in the wrong place. Not exactly that familiar with the IT side of it. Details tab on top. Oh, here we go. Let's see if we can find this. Xtop.exe. Let's see. So not entirely sure what this is, but yeah, one of the comments says that it is helpful to open this up. And I wish I could give just some more information about that. Not sure if you're still here, John, but do you is there I guess what exactly do we learn from this? Is there what is the benefit to having this open? Oh, I see. Xtop.exe is Creo parametric, and having 2 is interactive and batch. If the CPU is running and the memory doesn't get over 130,000, then usually indicates that the process has stalled. Got it. Okay. That's something I learned here. It looks like this is a way to essentially confirm that the process is stalled and this is not exactly working. And here we go. It looks like it just failed. Now, if I would like to investigate the cause of this failure, this is a good time to mention this. You can see that we do have a log file. So we have a file path here that I can follow to look at this matp log file. Let's see, I might have to open this with Notepad. Let's see, open with Notepad. Okay. And we can see here, connected to Creo, we have a error general problem with data conversion, something, something, something. As far as how this failed, or why this failed, usually there is kind of a trial and error of figuring out the intricacies of this program. It may be due to the fact that my part was not checked out. I sometimes commonly run into that. It also might be due to the fact that Creo was kind of open previously on the side. Sometimes in the past, I did have to Control-Alt-Delete to completely close out of Creo before opening my distributed batch. So that could potentially be the cause as well. Those would be the two things that I would try first, exactly why I'm getting the error there. So hopefully that helps at least with the troubleshooting process, although I didn't exactly find out why this didn't work. All right, awesome. Let's see, if anyone has any additional questions about this functionality, feel free to reach out via email. So if I just go back here, my name and email can be found here. I'm going to look into the recursive option that we have here, reply to that question via email. But once again, if anybody has additional questions, feel free to reach out to me via email. Any sales questions, feel free to reach out to sales@boundarysys.com. And lastly, I would recommend pulling up our YouTube channel. If you're not familiar with it already, you can just Google Boundary Systems YouTube. This webinar will be on YouTube in a couple days' time, and you can also find all of our previous webinars. Another comment in questions, just to mention really quick before I sign off. Your config.pro file cannot contain any protocol kit options in it. Another thing I wasn't familiar, that interaction will break this, but just another, I guess, troubleshooting step that could cause you an error would be a config.pro file contains any kind of, Pro Toolkit options, my bad. All right, thank you, everyone. Feel free to reach out with any additional questions, and have a great rest of the week.